Good evening and welcome to Normal Islands Live. I'm Curtis Daly and I'm delighted to be joined by Ben Mclaine. Ben, I understand you've been quite sick the last couple of days. Have you recovered? Are you feeling any better?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Honestly, I'm just excited to get into this stuff with you. It's going to be fun. Like, I feel like we don't do enough in-house shows anymore. Like, I
Right.
love that we get so many guests on.
Yeah.
We don't do enough in-house shows where it's just us. And I do love it. I do miss it. From like the old days. Like originally when we first started out, it was just like basically it was like the five of us like covering the guest slots, and I kind of miss it.
I completely agree. I love all of our guests, our wonderful guests, but do you know what? I miss the in-house. I miss us too. So I'm really excited to be sharing the show with you. I've also been not too well today as well. The last couple of days, I basically slept most of the day to sleep it off. Why are we always there? Was it just because left wingers are just so weak? We're just weak people.
Yeah,
We're just getting ill
weak
all the
immune
time.
systems. Yeah, too much soy. Just too much soy. That's what it is.
Too much soy. All right, let's get on with the show. Now tonight we're going to be discussing the arson attacks on the Hatzler Northwest ambulances and how the right wing have weaponized it. An art gallery depicting Israel's genocide has faced accusations of anti-Semitism, and a Labour post-mortem of the Gorton and Denton by-election shows they lost the white working class voters to the Greens. Now, you can help us grow by visiting turnleftmedia.co.uk/support or by becoming a member for YouTube, just not a member, a YouTube member for 99p. On with our first story. So, an art gallery in Margate has faced controversy after the way some of its paintings depict IDF soldiers. Writer Zoe Strimple put in a complaint to the police after visiting the exhibition, calling it anti-Semitic. She took to Twitter and wrote a very long post on her experience. In Margate, my cheeks are red. I am shaking. I popped into an exhibition that turned out to be the insane fever dream of an artist called Matthew Collins. Drawings Against Genocide. The exhibition is described as drawings raising consciousness about hell. Israel is the pure encapsulation of it. Zionism is this terror state's ruling ideology. Shocked by the use of Nazi imagery, the room is full of the Star of David pasted around figures meant to be Israelis and the Jewish lobby spewing blood. To say nothing of blonde yummy mummies wearing Globalize the Intifada shirts, I spoke to the artist to share my reaction as a Jewish person. He was instantly aggressive as soon as I started to say I was shocked and threatened by what I was seeing because it was Nazi imagery. The artist started yelling at me that I didn't mean anything I was saying. Anytime I tried to speak calmly, he said, "You don't mean any of what you said. You're just repeating Hasbro talking points because you're defending a genocide." On and on he yelled in my face. I said if I was a black person, but couldn't finish the sentence because he said, "You're not black, are you?" On the Nazi ideology point, he said, "Yeah, why do you think it's there? Israel are the Nazis." His breath was disgusting. The crowd began booing and closing in around me, making to shoo me out. I said, "Fine, get the Jew out." And he yelled more across the room at me, repeatedly jeering, "Call the police, go ahead, call the police." I said I would, and the Community Security Trust, which features as a devil in his exhibition. This was met with even more jeering. "Yeah, just call the CST," was the last thing I heard before leaving. Someone snapped pictures of me while I was being shouted at. Short video shows the artist. The longer video of our final almost surreally, is that a she typo there? So weird. Surreally disgusting exchange, and it didn't record, funny enough. Now, these are some of the images she shared with the tweets. You've got three images, an IDF soldier standing on a skull. Then you've got another IDF soldier, blood-soaked with multiple skulls. And I can't make out this third one, a woman just holding the Israeli flag. I can't make out the writing, but you can see it on screen. Part of that tweet was really funny when she says, "If I was a black person," and he cuts her off saying, "But you're not black, are you?" And I'm like, you do realize that makes you look stupid, right? You're not a person of color. Now, is this an anti-Semitic exhibition? The imagery could be seen as adjacent to some of the old blood libel imagery against Jews. However, the exhibition is exclusively talking about Israel and the IDF, and art is supposed to be provocative. And it's not as if the paintings are some kind of anti-Semitic hallucination fever dream. Some of the paintings are depicting real events, like this one. The drawing of an IDF colonial soldier crushing a skull seems comically evil until you realise this was a thing an actual guy did and took a selfie while doing it, and attached to the tweet is a painting of an IDF soldier, which you saw earlier, an IDF soldier standing on a skull, but it's based on a real image of an IDF soldier standing on a skull. Another example of anti-Semitism Strimple points to is the Star of David being displayed across the exhibition. But friend of the show, No Justice, makes a very good point. I must say, it's probably a misstep that the genocidal apartheid state puts an international religious symbol on all their iconography, isn't it? It's a good point, isn't it? I mean, if Israel's going to use the Star of David, don't expect to see it. Now, the story has national attention with Julia Hartley-Brewer decrying anti-Semitism on Talk TV.
This is how it happens. This is how 6 million Jews were sent to the gas chamber. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating. It started like this. This is the canary in the coal mine, and they don't just start with the Jews and end with the Jews. It carries on to everybody else. So I just think that everyone now, you need to wake up. You need to stop shutting up. You need to be speaking out. You see it online. You see it in person. You see it on the street. You hear a colleague saying it, a friend saying it in the pub. You need to say, no, that's anti-Semitic. That's unacceptable. You're wrong. You need to arm yourselves with some facts so you can argue against the nonsense about Israeli genocide and all of that. You need to start speaking out, because if you're not speaking out, if you're not actually challenging it, I'm afraid staying silent is being part of the problem. Okay, don't say, oh, I think I'd be the sort of person who would have spoken out against Hitler in the 1930s. And if you're not doing it now, then you are one of the people that would have stayed silent as they put Jews on the trains. And I'm sorry, that is the territory we are in. The people who are behind this growth, this conspiracy theories, this anti-Semitism, they want to kill everybody, not just in Israel, but all Jews around the world. And also their main aim, long term, is actually wiping out our democratic liberal values. We need to be alert to this. This stuff doesn't just happen overnight. It's creeping slowly. We are talking about the boiling frog scenario. The water is already getting pretty hot. Time for everyone to wake up and jump out of the pot. This is Talk, the home of common sense.
I find that segment so unbelievably disgraceful. So where I agree with Julia Hartley-Brewer, of course, you see anti-Semitism, you call it out, whether it's your friends, family, or strangers. You call out online, because anti-Semitism is something that is still prevalent in society. So that's where I agree. But why she's so dishonest is because she's saying this particular art gallery, which is depicting Israel, right, not Jewish people, Israel and IDF soldiers as Nazis, as monsters, and that, in Julia Hartley-Brewer's mind, is somehow the recipe to kill 6 million Jews. Now, once again, she's absolutely right. It doesn't take, you don't have millions of people dead overnight. It takes time. You have to persuade the people to support your regime. It starts with attacks, vandalism, pogroms, and then it goes on to the bigger, genocide, goes into the Holocaust, right? But she's there saying this genocide happens against Jewish people because of this particular art gallery. In the same breath, she then says that Israel's genocide is a load of nonsense. You cannot be serious. That is why I don't think Julia Hartley-Brewer is serious about anti-Semitism. Because guess what? The rise of anti-Semitism, part and part, has come from Israel, has come from Zionism. Israel attacks those who, not even anti-Zionist people, right? Israel attacks those who just merely criticize their regime. They attack Jewish people who disagree with them. Whether you're inside the Labour Party or outside the Labour Party, as an anti-Zionist Jewish person, you're treated terribly because of your views on Palestine. And yet Julia Hartley-Brewer won't platform anti-Zionist Jews, won't say, hold on a second, maybe we should listen to all Jewish voices rather than those parroting Zionism and Israel. So she doesn't care about Jewish people. And she has the fucking audacity to say, well, an art gallery depicting Israel as bad people, because guess what? They're the bad guys, is the same as, well, do you know what? This is how Holocaust starts, and these people want to kill all Jews. And seconds later, she says, but the whole Israel genocide thing, well, that's nonsense. Now, she says about how people would behave in World War II under the Nazi regime. I hand on heart believe that Julia Hartley-Brewer would not speak out during the Holocaust, because it's not just about being against racism. And I'm sure there were many who were horrified by the Nazis at the time, but they didn't speak up for fear of consequences. It's not just about being opposed to racism. It's about speaking truth to power. Brewer is not speaking truth to power. She is standing on sides of a very powerful state of Israel, backed by the West. Condemning anti-Semitism is not a controversial opinion today. It won't get you blacklisted, and I think that's a good thing. But speaking out against anti-Muslim bigotry, speaking up for Palestinians, that's not popular among the establishment and the media. You face ferocious pushback. That's how I know Julia and many others who continued to stand with Israel would behave during the Holocaust. They would cower. They would have to put themselves in the firing line. They would have to stand up to power. But they are showing they stand with power. Now, is Zoe Strimple an unbiased person who happened to be at an art gallery depicting Israel's genocide and as a Jewish person felt uncomfortable with the imagery? No, Strimple is a right-wing commentator who was written for the ultra-Zionist Jewish Chronicle. And I think there's a pretty good chance she already knew how she felt about the exhibition before going to see it. Ben, the imagery is certainly provocative, but anti-Semitic? I don't think so. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so overall, I would say no. But I think, look, I'm not the biggest fan of that art style, the sort of like abstract art style that Matthew Collings likes to take on. By the way, his name is Matthew Collings with a G in it. And Zoe, when she was writing her original post, referred to him as Matthew Collins, so she doesn't even seem to know who the guy is. And look, I can see why people would be worried at first glance, but it's very different for me to say that as to somebody who is trying to use it as an excuse to, you know, wash away the things that Israel has done. Like, for example, I do think that there is something a little bit unsettling about seeing a Jewish man portrayed in art depicted like eating a baby. Like, I do think there is something that is slightly unnerving about that. And I do think that in that case, in that one particular image, Matthew Collings is flirting with the edge of blood libel. But I don't think that's his intention. I think that's something he's stumbled into unintentionally because of all the mass deaths of children caused by Israel. But I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, that's a trope, but that's accidental. And as a whole, the art exhibition I don't think is anti-Semitic. Now, if we're talking about, like, blood libel, we should, like, define what we mean by blood libel. So blood libel is like an anti-Semitic trope about Jewish people needing blood. It's usually portrayed as like Christian children's blood as a religious offering. It's a conspiracy theory that, you know, Jewish people murder children, basically. And it's a horrific anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But it's also primarily related to religious anti-Semitism, not the sort of more recent, as in like 20th century, racial anti-Semitism, which is it is a bird of a different character, and it's worth sort of bearing that in mind. So let's look at the claims about religious anti-Semitism that are in this exhibition. Okay, we got devils in there that can be kind of considered a religious symbol, and you've got the Star of David, I think, as a religious symbol. And you could argue that there's a crucifix in there because there's a St. George's cross as well. But like, devils and demons, for example, are a common like representation of evil, and particularly those who murder children. Now, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism was trying to claim that this was like portraying Jews as demons, which is just just nonsense. Like the image itself is labeled. If you look at the image of the demon, it's actually labeled "Stop the Apartheid Demon" or something along those lines. It really is nothing to do with someone being Jewish. And the Star of David being on there. It's actually the Israeli flag, like every single time. It's always a blue star on a white background. And if you look across the artworks, there's consistently like national flags appearing, with the exception of the Nazi flag. I think that's the only one that's not like a current national flag. You see the St. George flag in there, the USA flag, the Union Jack, and the Nazi flag and the Israeli flag are all in there. Now, Nazi cartoons, of course, invariably made a lot of references to the Star of David, but they're also pretty explicit. The word Jew is like, or Judah is plastered across almost every single piece of Nazi propaganda. Like, they weren't shy about telling you who they were talking about. And along with also anti-communist symbolism. Now, anti-communist cartoons might unnerve you for the exact same reason, but that doesn't justify calling them anti-Semitic on those grounds. I think there's a sort of nuance here which I feel like has been missing from the conversation. And one of the things to understand, I think, is that Nazi cartoons weren't bad because the art style unnerved you, right? It's the ideology behind it is what matters, and that ideology is essentialist. If you think about like Nazi propaganda, like the Eternal Jew, the 1940 propaganda film, disgusting anti-Semitic film, and portrayed Jews as in by nature, as being evil and all of this. And there's even a scene, I think, in The Eternal Jew of like some Eastern European Jews being shaved to make them look Western, and the point of that is supposed to be in the Nazi mind is supposed to be that they're all the same by nature. It's something intrinsic to Jewish people. It's a racial anti-Semitism, in other words. Now, are Matthew Collins' drawings making that same essentialist claim, saying Jewish people or Israelis are acting this way because it's in their nature? No, absolutely not. In fact, in one of the inscriptions, it said, just by one of the side of the pictures you put up, it said, "This is in your head as an ideal because of how you have been programmed all your life, but you can stop it." Right? It's literally a call to Israelis or supporters of Israel to say, you can stop this pointless death and suffering. It's not something that's intrinsic or inherent to you. This is about like social conditioning. Am I going to go out of my way to defend Collins? Excuse me. Now, I think if you want to create this kind of art, you can do that. And you can put these sorts of images up. You can have this sort of quite abstract style. You can bring up all this imagery of like devils and blood and all of this stuff. But I do think that you have a duty, before you start doing any of that, to put out a statement condemning like anti-Semitism, and to make it absolutely clear to everybody which side of that conversation you fall on. But I don't have to defend everyone who's pro-Palestine, and I hope people don't feel that they have to defend everybody who's pro-Palestine either. I'm not saying I'm not defending him. I'm saying there's nuance here. But it's kind of a non-issue when there is an ongoing genocide. I watched some footage earlier of a refugee camp in central Gaza City being bombed and like 9 tents going up in flames. Worse than anything that's happened to fucking Zoe Strimple, who, by the way, disregards the suffering of the Palestinians as Pallywood and regards the IDF as the most moral army in the world. I can't wrap my head around ignoring that, but saying, hey, Matthew Collins' art is that's the cause of real suffering. As for Julie Hartley Brewer, the Holocaust didn't happen through left-wingers standing up for genocide victims and against colonial projects. Like, Hitler was very happy to support colonialism, but also, if the Nazis had been calling for an end to genocide and like equal democratic rights for people, that they wouldn't be Nazis. Like Julia Hartley Brewer is saying there, like, of the pro-Palestinian movement, I think she said they want to kill everybody, not just in Israel, but all Jews around the world. I'm sorry, what? I mean, you could maybe say, all right, try and pin that on Matthew Collins, but on the wider pro-Palestine democratic movement, really? So the people calling it calling the genocide in Palestine a genocide. So people like Zach Polanski, James Schneider, Rivka Brown, Norman Finkelstein, not to mention actual Holocaust survivors like Stephen Kapos, Jacques Boud, or Suzanne Weiss. And what about like the UN, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, Médecins Sans Frontières, Euromed Human Rights Monitor? Are we supposed to believe that these people all secretly want a worldwide genocide against Jewish people? Holocaust survivors want a worldwide genocide against Jewish people, rather than the far simpler explanation that Israel is committing a genocide and Julie Hartley-Brewer is a dolt who doesn't know what she's talking about.
I thought it was quite interesting what she said at the end when she said that. No, I am here and we are here to defend our liberal democratic institutions. And this got me thinking about what, because I tweeted it yesterday, what Michael Walker said on Wednesday. Sorry, it's Wednesday today, on Tuesday. And he said that liberals, if they were to actually be consistent with their own idea of liberalism, would be against Israel, right? Israel doesn't hold basic liberal ideals. It's an apartheid state, not a democratic state that cares about individual rights. And then he says, but so many liberals don't support that. And that kind of, I think this sort of comes together in a way in which Julia Hartley-Brewer is saying, oh no, like, because a lot of people say Israel is about the liberal values. And it's not about liberal values, but so many people who call themselves liberal are attaching themselves to something that is very, very not liberal. And I do wonder if, I might be reading into this too much or not, but a lot of these people, when they say Israel is a sort of liberal democratic bastion, it's embedded in racism because, well, really, it's a Christian Judeo project. It's kind of white adjacent. So these people are enlightened. They can live in a liberal democracy. But all these brown folk in the Middle East, they don't understand democracy. They're all animals. That's kind of the thing I get when they say Israel is this bastion of liberal democracy, when it quite clearly isn't. I feel like that's another racial element to it. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, I do. I really do think that there's like this, this sort of like element of they're the white people in the region, right? And that makes them like superior in some way, when actually a lot of their culture is very regressive. They reject a lot of liberal values. I do completely agree. I just at the end of the day, I think that like we're focusing on this as an art exhibition. I can't stop thinking about those like people, probably kids, statistically, who I watched getting blown up in a tent earlier today. I can't bring myself to sort of focus down on Matthew Collings. I've made clear that I'm not like a fan of that art style, and I do think there are potentially like anti-Semitic like things that are like could be interpreted from that, and that are sort of like a wider societal problem, rather than something that needs to be like expanded as a wider societal awareness. But I can have that conversation and also say, hey, what he's talking about, what he's trying to portray here, is actually far more important, like way more important. Also, on Zoe Strimple, what was that comment about like blonde yummy mummies that she put in there? That was really weird.
I don't know.
That's so strange.
I think she was attempting to be a bit witty in her little deranged rant. And the thing is that we can come on here and we can have nuanced conversations. Like because I agree with you. I'm not a fan of that art style. I do think it's a bit grotesque. Just like in any sort of edition of it, shall you say? I just don't like that art, right? Yeah. And I'm more likely to listen to someone who can say, maybe they're unintentional sort of imagery that looks a bit blood libel-y, but I'm still going to call out the genocide. I'm going to listen to that person, but I'm not going to listen to Zoe. And many people aren't going to listen to Zoe Strimple, who is saying that the entire thing was a anti-Semitic fever dream, whilst at the same time has not called out the genocide. Of course, I did see that story of the tents being blown up on Monday. And again, I can't get over the story. A baby was tortured by the IDF. And if you're angry at an art exhibition while that is going on, you're not a good person. You're not someone who's particularly caring about human rights. I would love to continue this conversation, but we are going to move on. But to be fair, I feel like this next story is kind of part of it anyway. Now, At the beginning of this week, ambulances run by Jewish charity Hatzalah were set alight, causing explosions. Now, thankfully, no one was hurt. 2 men were arrested in connection to the attack. They were aged 45 and 47, and they've been taken to London Police Station. Now, this has been labelled an anti-Semitic attack, and now security services are investigating whether this attack is linked to Iran. Security agencies are investigating whether a group linked to Iran is behind an arson attack on 4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish charity in North London. The Metropolitan Police said efforts to authenticate a claim of responsibility made by a group known as Hakarat Ashab al-Yaman al-Islamiyah, were a priority as the force sought to track 3 hooded people caught on CCTV at the scene. It is understood MI5, which is working closely with counter-terrorism officers, has not ruled out Tehran's involvement in the explosions in Golders Green, an area of North London that has a large Jewish community. But security sources also cautioned against a rush to tie Iran to the arson, leaving open the possibility of an anti-Semitic attack with no link to Iran or any organised group. It has not so far been designated as a terrorist incident. The group, whose name translates as the Islamic Movement of the Companions of the Right, and which the Israeli government has linked to Iran, has claimed responsibility for similar attacks against Jewish institutions in the Netherlands and Belgium in recent weeks. Now, whenever we see, or whenever an anti-Semitic attack occurs, there are those who assume it's a false flag attack. And when people do this, it gives me really bad vibes, because any attack that includes the Jewish community always comes with accusations of Mossad. However, I do want to point out that some other people have said in relation to this particular incident that there are some inconsistencies. And no, these aren't conspiracists, these are respected journalists. This is researcher and activist Philip Proudfoot. It is very unusual for an apparently resistance-linked organisation to refer to the lands of Israel. The almost universal way of referring to Israel by those organisations is the Zionist entity. And this is a quote tweet of what Loki said. It is worthy of note that the group which is claiming responsibility for the burning of ambulances last night refers to Palestine as the land of Israel. It does so in both English and Arabic, which is particularly unusual. He continues, a supposedly anti-Zionist group referring to Palestine as a land of Israel in Arabic is completely unusual. It has also been drawn to my attention that the Hebrew word used for immigration in this statement is aliyah, which has specific Zionist connotations. If we accept that this is an Iran-linked organization, as is being claimed, it is safe to say that through its use of words like the land of Israel instead of the Zionist entity, it will be the first in history of such groups to actually recognize Israel. Not likely. This was also pointed out by Navaris Arabistani. Iranian schoolbooks don't even refer to Israel on a map. Rather odd if Iranians suddenly use it here in a political statement. Will certainly be interesting to see what a police investigation shows. There should be serious resources committed to it. This then led to this exchange. James Hartfield said, Arabistani flirting with the false flag lies about the Golders Green attack. Aaron responds by saying, why do you continually lie about me? Very odd. It could be many things, and wouldn't be the first time LARPers did something like this. An Iranian anti-Zionist wouldn't write Israel. It's literally not even depicted on maps in Iran. You've no idea what you're talking about. And Hartfield responds with, the context in which this attack took place is a rising crescendo of Jew hatred promoted by your own website, amongst others. This false flag is just magical thinking to hide your shame at complicity in this wave of anti-Semitism, and attached to our 2 images, one from an article, one from Rivka Brown, evidence of Navarro's supposed anti-Semitism. I want to be extremely clear here, right? I don't know if this was a false flag. I think it's incredibly unwise to say that it definitely is, because we can't know for sure. it's more than likely that this was a horrific anti-Semitic attack. And when we look back to the Bondi Beach massacre, the synagogue attack in Manchester, these were awful crimes committed by people who blamed Jewish people for the crimes of Israel, and there were a subsection of people who called it a false flag. Now, in this instance, it is strange that a so-called Iranian group used the term Land of Israel. It's weird. But there's also another element to this, which is that, you know, this was carried out by a bunch of anti-Semites who have no wider connection, and Israel or others are trying to form a connection between just deranged people and Iran, which is kind of another form of false flag. That it wasn't Israel or the Mossad who carried out the attack, but are trying to pin it on a group. Again, we do not know. And look, I don't have a problem with journalists questioning these irregularities. That is the job of journalists. And I don't think it makes you anti-Semitic. I don't think that Loki or Philip Proudfoot or Aaron Bastani are anti-Semites for making an observation. And it is a historical fact that Israel has engaged in false flags. But I don't think it's healthy to make a habit of it. It's better journalistic practice to question something when you've seen some evidence than to assume that everything is a false flag because the victims are Jewish. I think these are separate things. However, one thing is guaranteed is that a depraved attack has been weaponized by the usual suspects. Right-wing influencer Ollie London said, "This is what Free Palestine activists mean when they chant globalize the Intifada." Now, on a very rare occasion, I'm going to defend Keir Starmer, sort of. Melanie Phillips blamed the rise of anti-Semitism on Starmer after he condemned the anti-Semitic attack. No place for anti-Semitism. You have fueled rampant murderous anti-Semitism by your lies about Israel, toleration of hate marches calling for the death of Jews, and genuflection to Islamist pressure. Spare us the crocodile tears. Now, Melanie Phillips is a genuine disgusting person, by the way. She is a racist. She is Islamophobic. She hates Arabs and Palestinians. That's true. She's an ultra-Zionist. A horrible person who should never say anything about racism. But how has Keir Starmer facilitated, like, a huge rise in anti-Semitism? I mean, he purged everyone inside the Labour Party for standing up to Palestinians, or standing up for Palestinians. He's done things to try and appease Zionists like Phillips, yet she and many others think Starmer is to blame. And then she goes and talks about the so-called hate marches. No, they are ceasefire marches, as we've explained time and time again. They are pro-Palestine marches. But Melanie Phillips lies again and says, oh, these are hate marches that says kill all Jews. No one's saying that, especially not the Jewish people who are part of the pro-Palestine marches. Right-wing columnist Alison Pearson believes the BBC have played a part. There is no doubt that BBC News has legitimised anti-Semitism and helped produce an atmosphere in which Jewish ambulances are burnt to the ground. The BBC is no longer a public service broadcaster worthy of the licence fee. That's deranged. That's crazy. I mean, the same BBC that continually provided cover for Israel, when Nick Robinson can't even bring himself to call it a genocide, the same BBC which aired the John Ware documentary on the so-called Labour anti-Semitism crisis under Jeremy Corbyn, where they platformed people who smeared anti-Zionist Jewish members, who was the leading outlet in manufacturing the crisis, are actually anti-Semitic. Now, granted, I think weaponization of anti-Semitism is deeply anti-Semitic, but I suspect she didn't mean it in that way. And whilst not using this attack for political gain, this statement from Boris Johnson is deeply ironic. What kind of maniacs attack a fleet of ambulances? The culprits must be caught and punished with exemplary severity to show that anti-Semitism has no place in Britain. I mean, who would do such a thing? I don't know. Israel? I mean, the state of Israel, which you support, Boris, by the way, they have attacked health workers on many occasions. They've murdered people, and they've murdered people in ambulances. And Boris Johnson, the same guy who's literally written anti-Semitic content, At a time when Jeremy Corbyn was Labour leader and Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, yet the media said that Jeremy Corbyn was the anti-Semite and ignored all of the actual anti-Semitic things that Boris Johnson wrote. Voice for Rabbis put out a statement condemning the weaponization. The recent vandalism of Hatzalah... Sorry, I'll start again. The recent vandalism of Hatzalah ambulances in Golders Green is being cynically exploited to manufacture a narrative of religious tension that simply does not exist. Zionists are once again weaponizing anti-Semitism, which they themselves provoke by hijacking the Jewish name and labeling it organic hatred. While we condemn all violence, we refuse to allow our reality to be distorted. British Jews and their Muslim neighbours have a long-standing history of peaceful coexistence. A former letter sent today by the Union of Orthodox Hebrew Congregations to 10 Downing Street confirms this truth, denouncing the fringe agitators who profit from fear. We reject any attempt to turn a local criminal act into a political tool for Zionist propaganda. Ben, a lot of things going on there. First of all, I mean, what do you make of the whole thing?
I want to say, first of all, that there was some confusion in the chat. I was just watching some of the comments. There's some confusion in the chat about what Hatzalah are. Hatzalah ambulances, and I think they've got like a police type division as well, are basically the equivalent of like St. John's Ambulance or like the Red Crescent or the Red Cross, as in like... they're run by certain, and through certain religious groups, but they're not exclusively for those religious groups. You can join the Hatzalah, you can join St. John's Ambulance, you can join the Red Crescent without being a Muslim or a Christian or a Jewish person. And they will of course treat people who are Muslim, Jewish. It doesn't matter. Like literally, these are very, very good people, and it's always worth saying like. What they do is really, really cool. I absolutely love like the principle, the concept of it. It's awesome. Now, as you say, like every hospital in Gaza has been destroyed by Israeli forces at this point, and it is terrible that those Hatzalah ambulances were attacked. Thank God they were empty. I just wish that like the ambulances sent to rescue Hind Rajab had been empty when the Israelis struck it, instead of the two Red Crescent paramedics who were on their way to rescue a 6-year-old child who'd been filled with 330 bullets by Israeli forces, instead of them being killed. That would have been my preference. I think that if you say one, I think you just have to say the other. I think jumping to blame the BBC or Keir Starmer, obviously nonsensical, right? Where is this sudden adaptation of deep concern for systemic racism and the social impact of even like tangentially linking a minority group to violence? When a transphobe says, well, what if I identify as a woman? That's kind of what this reminds me of, because people like Melanie Phillips or Julie Hartley-Brewer for that matter, or Ollie London, they don't believe in the premise underlying the statement, right? They don't do this for other types of racism, and like the disingenuousness is integral there when someone says that. Just like when somebody says, well, what if I identify as a woman to be transphobic? You're like, well, you don't, because you don't believe the underlying principles about society in the first place to hold that sincere belief. And like these people, Melanie and Ollie and Julie Hartley-Brewer, they've suddenly got this like deep concern about the marginalisation of vulnerable groups and stochastic violence caused by careless characterisation of minorities. I'm sorry, where is this shit with like refugees, with Muslims, with transgender people, with left-wing Jewish figures like Zach Polanski? Where is it when it comes to black people? Where is it when it comes to like Asian men who are characterized as groomers, right? In May in 2023 or 2024, there was a transgender student I was reading about, a Welsh transgender student who was walking home, and two men in balaclavas approached her, yelled anti-Semitic slurs at her, pushed her down and started kicking her in the head, yelling transphobic slurs at her. At least one of them was trained in MMA. I think his name was Alex Edwards, if I'm not confusing that with someone else. And like in that attack, somebody was physically injured. it directly ties back to a rising torrent of hate against that group, trans people, picking on a minority group who were also targeted by the Nazis, by the way. So will Melanie Phillips be coming out to condemn the fueling of, like, how does she phrase it, rampant murderous transphobia that's calling for, like, or causing the death and suffering of many, many trans people? These people don't believe a fucking word they're saying. Like, they just don't. I feel like I should address the false flag thing too. To me, the most likely explanation is that it's a Western group of extremists, as in not funded and fueled by any Western government or even Israel. But I think it's more likely that this is like a homegrown, like, terror cell. That seems to be the most likely explanation for me. Or this is a group that have, like, sprung up spontaneously, and then the Iranian government sort of tried to claim credit, and then have translated the statement from English, and so you end up with the word Israel being used directly in there. Because if English is your first language, it could be a direct translation, if you see what I mean. Because it could be like,
well, to be fair,
they
I
preferred
think
to it.
In the Iranian, like, the original translation, it says "Land of Israel" too. So I don't think it was like a bad translation. And I'll let you finish, but Iranian? I do also want to quickly say.
No, sorry, I'm saying it's been both. It's been translated both ways. As in, it's started. You think it's been translated
both ways? Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, because if it started in English, if you see what I mean, then it would still say Israel. And then it would sound strange to an Iranian, but that's because these people, even if they are Iran-backed or whatever, their first language would be English. And I think you've got to remember, most terrorism that happens in Western countries is homegrown. It might be committed by, like, Islamists who are supported, using funds from other countries, Saudi Arabia, Iran, or wherever, or even, Christian countries like America. But most terrorism is homegrown. Most people who commit terrorist atrocities don't come in from other countries. They're not refugees on small boats. Most of them grew up and live here, and they get radicalized, groomed on the internet, usually online. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think that this.
Sorry, I did cut in.
No, it just makes me think that it's probably a homegrown situation. Yeah, but, like, on the point that we were talking about, like, where is the consistency? They don't have this kind of concern for any other fucking group. Like, they just don't. They don't apply it to any other group. And it's good. You should apply this to Jewish people. You should apply these sorts of concerns and protections about the rising tide of anti-Semitism. That is a good thing. But just have some fucking consistency. Apply it to some other people, especially if you're a rabid hate monger like Julia Hartley-Brewer or Melanie Phillips.
It's the world's worst people lecturing the left on racism. You've had Lawrence Fox come out and say anti-Semitism exists and stuff like that. I'm not going to take lectures from people who are racist to everybody else, who are suddenly concerned about anti-Semitism, but they're not concerned about anti-Semitism. It's more of their pro-Israel stance. And they're lecturing people on the left on anti-racism, when, like, to be part of the left, I'm not saying that no lefties are racist, of course, it's ridiculous, but, like, one of the ideologies of the left is to stand up for equality based on oppression, or standing up for minorities. Like, that's part of the politics of us, right? We strive for it. We fail. Many times we do. A lot of us can be racist and sexist, right? But that's what we strive for. That's part of being the left. And it's crazy to see that JHB, Melanie Phillips, Lawrence Fox, whoever can say the most disgusting things about people of color, about Muslims, but suddenly they're really, really anti-racist when it comes to Jewish people. It's crazy. I think we're going to move on because it's getting to 8:20, and we haven't hit our third story yet. But before we get into our final story, of course, not going to say it's 2026. We want this year to be really big for Turn Left. We want to be far more ambitious than last year and to really put us on the map. We'd like 2026 to be a year where we can have a studio, but we're doing this. If you haven't realized already, we're doing a sort of hybrid thing. So at the moment, we've got this part of the studio. There's now a secondary part of the studio with a second camera, and now and again, we're going to be having contributors here in the studio. which is really exciting. But of course, we don't have a proper main base of a studio just yet. So it's going to be every now and again a hybrid. But even that is progress thanks to you. Of course, we want our contributors to be paid for the work we do too. Your support of the years has been incredible, and we want to take this to the next level. We rely on small donations. So if you want to be part of a media organization that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link for a one-time contribution. You can also become a YouTube member for 99p. On to our final story. A new analysis from the Labour Party in relation to the Gorton and Denton by-election shows that Labour lost white working-class voters to the Greens. Labour lost white working-class voters to Greens and Gorton Denton party analysis finds. Lucy Powell says by-election showed people need a reason to vote Labour as senior figures considered change in strategy. Labour's deputy leader Lucy Powell told activists and members it was a warning the party could lose voters on its left flank who went far beyond the stereotype of progressive young professionals and those from Muslim communities. Now, for months, we were told that the Greens won off the back of so-called sectarian politics, that they only appealed to minorities. I mean, even The Guardian published this back in February, talking about the Muslim vote shifting to the Greens, echoing Labour's line that they were playing sectarian politics. However, despite this, it seems that Lucy Powell hasn't learned their lesson. Powell said analysis from the campaign had found the two biggest reasons for not voting Labour were tactical voting to keep reform out and protest voting to send Labour a message. Now, while it's likely that those two reasons were part of the story, stopping reform and voters showing their displeasure at Labour, what Powell fails to acknowledge is that people also want to vote for the Green Party as they like their policy agenda. Reducing Green support only down to a protest or tactical vote completely misses the way people feel about politics, that there is a lack of urgency from politicians to deal with people's material conditions, and the Greens are at least attempting to do that. Ben, whilst it's true minorities are leaving Labour and finding their home with the Greens, do you think there is a broader trend of voters who aren't a minority or a progressive graduate moving to the Greens, and it's like, you know, the traditional working class people? Or do you think Gorton Denton was unique because Hannah Spencer is a white working class plumber?
I think that Gorton and Denton is in some ways unique because it's quite well situated for the Greens to win. But there are a lot of places like that across the UK. Gorton and Denton particularly have like a large student population. It's unusually like young and diverse, particularly when we're talking about Gorton, less so when we're talking about Denton. And also Gorton voters had some of the highest fuel poverty levels in the country. And so these are all areas that the Greens do kind of well in. Those are conditions that the Greens do relatively well under. But again, data has shown that the white working class voters voted Green in this case, and that's kind of consistent with the national data showing that people under 55 are just overwhelmingly supporting the Greens. Like people who are working class, not just in the sense of their class status, but are actually like in work as well, do overwhelmingly support the Greens, much more so than they support Labour, although Labour are a close second among that cohort. It's very much sort of relatively left-wing, if you can call the Labour Party left-wing anymore, relatively left-wing voting cohort. And of course, Labour's campaign in Gorton and Denton was designed around frightening the socially conservative voter, saying things like Zach wants to give children drugs. What was it? Your playground will become a crack den, and going on about like legalizing prostitution, and they want to your daughter to be sold into prostitution or something. It's horrible stuff. They went really low with their campaign, like lower in some cases than Reform did. And I think a lot of voters are, one, put off by that, but also the kind of voter that would appeal to is typically voting Conservative or Reform anyway. You're not going to win many people over with that because the people who might be won over by that message already have that message from Reform and the Conservatives. They're already got two people competing for that message. And of course, the Greens are coming in with something that's like new and different. And you're right, like it's their policies that win people over. You need both. You need good communication and good policies that show like a good understanding of how to fix people's problems, their real problems. Because, of course, none of that scaremongering is very effective among students. Good luck scaremongering about drugs among students, or like the younger population who we get our news from social media. And, of course, minority communities of all types understand how poverty affects them. And they're much more concerned about that than they are concerned about, like, you know, the decriminalisation of sex work or the decriminalisation of drugs. A lot of them understand and support that stuff. And then I think the final thing is that Labour have just treated Muslim voters appallingly. And the rise of like Islamophobia that I was talking about the other week is partly due to the things that the Labour Party's done, and the Labour Party and other governments, I should say, have done, and their refusal to listen to the concerns of Muslim voters about Gaza. I mean, I don't want to bring everything in the show back to Gaza, but like, I think that is a factor here. You know, it's a smaller factor, but it is a factor. And that includes, by the way, it's not just Muslims who are concerned about Gaza. It's also going to be young people and white working class people who are concerned about Gaza, because they're never given any credit for it. Like, working class people are never given any credit for it. But working class people as a whole are intelligent, and working class people understand that the phrase in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians, it's not an abstract phrase. It means that the treatment that we see going on towards the Palestinians, whether that's in the West Bank or Gaza, is the treatment that we can expect in decades to come, to start to come here, through our policing, through our military interventions, through our security state, through the way which minorities are treated in our society, and the way which politicians act and are held accountable. All of that, indeed, a lot of that is probably coming here, and working class people, you know, of all different types, are painfully aware of that fact, and I think that Labour kind of underestimates them by ways going to the lowest common denominator. I think working class people just deserve better.
And I think it's very ironic when people talk about sectarian politics from the Greens. The most unifying politics is material conditions. Whether you're black, you're brown, you're Muslim, Jewish, atheist, we all got to pay our bills. We all worry about our public services. And the thing is, though, the Greens, look, if you were just to win over minority voters, you won't be electorally successful. You can't win a Gorton-Denton by-election with that margin just based on sectarian politics, being an Islamist party. You have to win over everyone, including the white working class. And to do so isn't to pit white working class with black and brown working class, or to say that foreign issues don't matter, because you're absolutely right. The working class are treated as stupid by those who say that the left treats them as stupid, right? When they say, oh, the Greens, when do they talk about Gorton and Denton? They only talk about Gaza, which, you know, quite funny when the right wing only talks about Israel. Which, by the way, they talk about Gorton, Denton and Gaza, and ordinary people care about that. I'm an atheist, and you know how much I care about Gaza. It's the most unifying message. Let's go to our comments now, because it's come up to 7:30. Let's bring in our producer, Sarah. How are you?
Hello. How are we? Yeah. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, really, really great show. Let's get into comments. Firstly, thank you so much, Michael, as ever, for your gifting a 10 left membership again. Specs, also thank you so much for gifting a 10 left membership. 5 10 left memberships. We're really grateful.
Thank you, Specs.
You guys were getting so much love in the comments. But this made me laugh. Ben, Curtis not invited you to the studio. Sure.
I know.
Got a restraining order against him, to be fair. Everyone from Turn Left can come apart from Ben. He's got to stay outside. We'll build like an outside studio where you can, with no roof, so it's raining.
December, yeah.
Yeah, shaking while you're giving your analysis. Yes, we do things differently, all right?
Yeah, and just on you, Ben. Michael also said, "Love Ben's takes. You should definitely invite him back sometime." It did make me laugh.
Oh my god!
I don't know about that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe not have him back. I'm not sure.
we'll think about it actually. And then just the last one on Ben because they were really bigging you up. But appreciate how Ben can maintain and explain two quite complex points of view at the same time, even when ill, and that was on the last story. And then someone said, make sure to cover all bases. It's class how much he knows. Like, I mean, you know what is true. I actually feel really
Big brain in there.
I feel like dumb when I'm around Ben. I'm like, he's so smart.
I mean, you saying dumb makes you sound dumb, not all your views.
I can't help it. It just sits
you know,
down from
Cody
me.
Darla's popularised that now. Dicky Dicky Dum Dum.
Yeah, Dicky Dum Dum.
That's his thing.
Oh,
now.
is it?
I'm sorry,
He's
I just
going
wanna point
places
out-
now, isn't he?
He is. I just want to point out. Sorry, Jim Speak said Ben can sneak in his alter ego.
Yeah,
Len
I
McLean.
highlighted that one. I love this one. Len McLean.
Who's Len?
It's Ben's alter. Who's Len? It's Ben's alter ego. It's Len McLean.
Yeah, he's just switched the L and the B. And
You
the
should
name.
have the glasses with the nose and the moustache. Like, I'm Len McBain. That'll be great. That'll be great. Anyway.
That is funny. So we'll go from the top story. Obviously everyone was kind of just, there was no one opposing anything that anyone said today, which was interesting. Edward Sexby said Julia hates spewer jokes. Does exactly the same thing that the Nazis did to the Jews, but towards Muslims and trans people. Yeah.
Do you honestly believe that Julia Hartley-Brewer would be one of the few people standing up to the Nazis? Do you really think that she would put herself in a worse position and face imprisonment or death? Do you really think that's the kind of person she is? Absolutely not. She, honestly, again, my belief, she would cower. She wouldn't speak out. She absolutely would not.
Oh yeah, she wouldn't speak out.
She works for a corporate-backed Talk TV racist media organization owned by fucking Paul Marshall, and she has the temerity to talk about truth to power. Well, accuse other people not speaking truth to power. She's on the side of power.
Yeah,
She's shit as well. She's Julia Hartley-Sewer. She's a horrible person.
Yeah, they don't understand the world through like consistent principles and the idea of universality and duties which can be universalized. Like they don't understand the world that way, the way that most of us like humans do. These are demon people, right? These fucking demon people. Honestly, like they see the world as in group and out group.
Yeah,
like that is the conservative way of conceiving of the world. Like genocide and the Holocaust to them, they weren't bad because the genocide is a awful, horrible thing to do, right? Or that there's any consistent moral principle against genocide. It was bad because the enemy did it. Like that is why they see it as bad.
Yeah.
And so when they try to apply that same framework to another situation, they can't fucking do it because they just don't think like you and me.
Because if it could have happened that the Nazis, like if the Nazis were our allies, these same people would not be calling it out. They were just on the other end. They were just on the other side. That's it. Whereas Israel are supposedly our allies, they can justify it. Like if Iran did this, you probably hear Julie Hartley-Brewer condemn it. That's no moral consistency there.
Yeah.
Agreed. And then actual Intrepid said Julia Hartley-Brewer, which is just what you said, Curtis. It's true.
Fucking sue her. She absolutely I fucking hate her.
I don't know what she said at the end of the video. What was it? And this is Talk TV, the place where we say how it
I
is.
stopped listening at a point.
Like we say how it is. Like you're just fucking. It's what.
What's like GB News? Like we're the People's Channel. We say how it is.
No, you don't.
Ran through Paul Marshall first.
Yeah, and then Michael kind of echoes this. Like her salary dictates her view. Such a bought person, and this is what I mean. Like you don't say it how it is. You just say what's going to like cause the most what's the word I'm looking for? Like hullabaloo. It's not the word I'm looking for, but just the most hullabaloo. And then just enrage people, rage bait, all this like pathetic, trivial, juvenile shit. and then you don't even mean the things you say. Like you're not a journalist. Fuck off. So yeah, pathetic.
True.
And then talking on the BBC, Poodlefish Girl said, "Well, the BBC have definitely played a part, but not in the way that she means." And that was exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, they were happy to smear anti-Zionist Jewish people, but of course they don't care about those Jewish people.
Yeah, agreed. Super complicit. And then Jacqueline said, even if Labour started making campaign promises to win over voters, who would trust them?
Yeah, good point. I wouldn't.
Yeah. It's the problem with it's the same problem that Donald Trump has been having in Iran, right? If you gain a reputation for tricking people, it gets you into a position of power, and then you're fucked. Like,
Yeah,
what are
what
you
you
going
gonna
to
do
do? You
with
can't
that
make
power now?
an agreement with anybody. Like, Donald Trump can't make an agreement with Iran because none of the Iranians trust him because he decided to
They're
bomb
right
them
to
during
not trust him.
negotiations.
Like they're absolutely right to not trust this 15-point plan, because. And by the way, the 15-point plan is probably they probably wouldn't agree with the 15-point plan on all of the 15 points anyway. But like, there is no evidence to suggest that Trump would stick to it.
Yeah, and the same with the Labour Party. Like, and these are both governments that are in power, rapidly declining in the polls because they lied to everybody, and so they lied together. They belong together, and like it's the same thing with the Labour Party. Like, just as Trump can't get any agreement with Iran because they can't trust him to keep his word, the Labour Party can't get any agreement with the public because the public knows they can't trust the Labour Party to keep any of the pledges that Keir Starmer makes because he lies all the time. It pays to build a reputation for keeping your word. It really does.
Good point. And then just last one, Arthur Bumblefoot said, did you star this one, Curtis? Helena hosting the Barra Sorrow too. So I'd like to stream at Jacqueline. I think she does, yes. She was late today due to the trains.
So, because someone else said, like, does she go into Navarra every? Yeah, she has to.
Yeah.
And I'm just self-promoting. The reason why I brought them up is tune into Navarra tomorrow, not just for Helena.
Chris is there. It's Chris. Yeah, tune in. And just a last one. Sorry, Ollie. Thank you so much. He gifted 5 10 memberships.
Yes, Ollie.
Super grateful.
Thank you, Ollie.
Thank you.
I think Ollie followed up that by saying something along the lines of it's money for a coffee for Ben so that he can keep warm when he's outside the studio.
Yeah, true. I mean, we'll do that. You don't need a shelter or roof, but we'll give you a coffee. And what we'll do is we'll put a cover on the mic because we don't want to ruin the mic. But obviously, your head can get wet. You can get wet.
Can we just?
We probably should stop joking about this because it might actually start going places, and then like we'll get a reputation of just treating stuff like shit.
Yeah.
Or worse, we'll get a reputation that we're too poor to be able to afford a full studio. We don't get enough money
with heating. But this one, I think is like a really interesting comment, and like because I know that a lot of people did vote tactically previously before, but I don't feel like people should. Obviously, like upon reflection, people whatever, but like I don't think that people should feel a sense of shame for doing what they did in previous elections. Like lessons learned, self-reflection is really important. But it does make me quite sad that people are like, I felt dirty coming out, but it's like it's okay, like it's fine. I don't know. I don't want people to be beating themselves up over voting tactically in the past. So that's the only reason why I brought this comment.
If you're voting Labour today, I would have less sympathy. Although I would say 2024, the signs were obvious, but you know what? We're called Turn Left. We bring people in. We bring. Yeah. If you voted Labour in 2024 and you don't agree with your past self, that's fine. No shame there. To not keep everyone, but I thought I'd bring this up because that's a nice comment.
Where is it?
We'll have to show it first. No, that's not the one.
That's the one I got.
It is the one you brought. I starred it. Here we are. I'm assuming you're new?
Oh, I've never seen this person before. Yeah.
So I love the comments rundown, super cool. I'll be sure to tune in next time and chime in a bit more. Please do.
Yeah,
Please
please
come
do.
back in
I'm back.
and give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts, even if you disagree, even if you want to rip me or Ben to shreds, go for it.
Not me
We love
though,
it.
because I'm sensitive.
Yeah, not Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was watching an old show called Q&A. It functions a bit like Question Time. It's an Australian show. It functions a bit like Question Time. And they had a really interesting concept, which was like viewers can send in like a 10-second video with a question. Now, I don't know how we'd like do it.
Yeah, fucking hell, what budget do you think we've got?
Well, no. I'm talking about like I don't know. Obviously, we can receive a video from somebody and play a video from somebody.
Yeah,
That's
true.
not difficult. But the problem is how do we make it sort of relevant to current events, or maybe we should just make it like about things that have happened in the recent past. Therefore, somebody can have their question asked, and actually like we can see someone's face as well, because like. I don't know, people in the chat like Specs or Scottish Soul, I love and appreciate them. I don't know what they look like. It would be really cool to actually see.
I feel like we get inundated with messages from Len Mclaine.
Yeah.
Len Mclaine sending videos in. He's got his glasses and his fucking moustache. I think that Ben Mclaine is the best person at Turn Left.
Yes. Funnily enough, on my TikTok account, sometimes I go online and I like debate people on TikTok. I do it a lot. It's how I met Sarah actually. And I have this like symbol that was like drawn for me by an artist. It's I can actually show you, because if I just disable my cam, it's this one. This symbol, and it's the one I always use. And then I created an account for when I get like when somebody gets wound up, like knocks me off the panel and blocks me. I created one that was just the original like not Antifa cog, and it was just that, but I put like a fake moustache and glasses on.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Not cog.
You're so silly.
Oh, you're such a joker, you.
Sorry.
But yeah, that's it for the comments. Really, really great show. Thank you to everyone's comments and your contributions and just viewing and being here. It's been great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Wonderful comments. Wonderful producer. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining me tonight.
Thanks. I'm never doing it again.
Cool. All right. I'm not fucking having you again.
No, I'm kidding. Of course I am. We should do this more.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, because I miss it.
Well, I would definitely like this year to be the year where we can do 5 shows, and if we can try and do that, and we might not able to get a guest every single time, so we can do more in-house stuff, which would be nice. Good for you to be in the studio as well. But yes, excellent analysis, perfect stuff. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. We will be back this Friday at 7:30 p.m. for another edition of Normal Islands Live, and I'll see you next time.